Hello and welcome to another edition of the Italian Wine Series. Got a poor connection. Hello, so this is Monica Larner. I am the Italian editor with the Wine Advocate. And each week I am doing interviews with winemakers. And this week we have from Tuscany, we have the father and son team, Filippo Mazzei of the Marchesi Mazzei estate in Chianti Classico. And there they are. Hello, good morning.
Ciao!
Ciao.
Ciao!
Buon pomeriggio. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
How are you doing?
Really well.
I love the background. I love the background. That's your family tree.
That's our family tree.
Perfect. Listen, so we're going to speak with Giovanni, who's on our right, and his dad Filippo Mazzei. And we have a whole bunch of wines to talk about this week. A lot of interesting stuff, a lot of new releases and wines that are being released in a new way. So there's quite a lot to discuss. But before we go forward, I wanted to ask you guys, how are you doing? And how have you been going through these last months of lockdown and then post-lockdown? How has it been there for you for the last 6 months or so?
Well, it's been a particular time. I mean, I think every one of us discovered the family. We all discovered a family that at the end of the day they're not actually that bad. And we came back to stay here in Untitled with my father and the rest of the family from all over the place, because my sister came from Argentina, my one cousin came from America, another one came from Singapore, and then we all got reunited here from Untitled.
The family is spread out all over the world. I mean, at least a few different continents, you know. I was here, and then week by week they joined us, and I think it was really to live at the estate. It's a great privilege, you know, compared to people that have to stay. Even if you have a beautiful flat, I mean, you are inside your flat. I mean, and after a few weeks, I think it's a nightmare. And so we had really very good time, and we were very lucky. We have a big privilege to go in the wood, have a little walk without anybody that can without any problem.
So we were
You are very lucky, and everybody that, one of the things that I realize, even from my own experience, I guess if you're going to be on lockdown, there is no better place than on a vineyard, and because we were able to watch this incredible spring and the seasons change, it's been quite magical.
Yeah, plus vineyard never stopped, so we had to carry on. So it was business as usual in a way.
Yeah.
So that was encouraging, and also for the people that works with us, it was like there's good energy, good buzz, and everyone wanted to do the best to really get out of the situation, which is still, unfortunately, we still live in uncertainty, which is it's pretty annoying.
Yeah.
We hope that we're going to find a solution very soon.
We all do. We all do. So I can't help but, and I have seen your family tree, the image that is at your backs. I've seen that in person. And I can't, I can only repeat how impressive and how impressive that family tree is and how vast and important. So if you could give us a little bit of background on your family and on your important history. But before you do, I just wanted to ask you to kind of give us also an idea of where you are located exactly in Chianti Classico.
Well, we are located we are in the heart of Chianti Classico in Castellino in Chianti. Literally, Castellino Fontenutoli this property covers 3 districts. So we are on mainly the majority in Castellino in Chianti. Well, a bit in Radda and also in Castelnuovo Benedenga.
So those are 3 important, subzones in the Chianti Classico appellation. Right.
But
With
Fonterutoli, where we actually are, which is Fonterutoli, which is this medieval hamlet, which is in Castellina in Chianti.
The major part is in Castellina.
The major part in Castellina. So the brand is Marchesi Mazzei, but the estate goes by the name of Castello di Fonterutoli, just to be clear.
Definitely, I would suggest it's more the Castello di Fonterutoli.
Right.
Mazzei is the umbrella.
Is the umbrella, exactly.
The trademark here is Castello di Fonterutoli.
All right. So now, how about a little bit of the history?
Well, it all starts from here. I don't know if you guys can see it. This is like the original coat of arms. And my family, Mazzei, means Mazza means hammer. And at the time, the coat of arms, the hammers were wooden hammers, and symbolizing what we were doing. This was our job. We were artisans making barrels for wines. We were artigiani bottai, coming from a little village. Dov'è papà il village? Casinano, which is right there. I don't know if you can see it.
15 miles northwest of Florence.
Huh. That's fantastic, yeah.
And there was a tiny little village where my family was, slowly the family was getting bigger and the village was too little. And with some of us left and went towards Florence, where we did our career in politics, military, and notary, and was still with wine in our hearts. It's one of the major characters of the family is Serlapo Mazzei.
Yeah, this I can show you. These are the two persons here, two brothers, Serlapo and Leonardo. Is the one that they went to Florence, and Leonardo changed his, there was the arte, the inscription, the family inscription in kind of different job, and he moved to the arte dei corazzai. Because it was much more profitable than stay on Cooper or and Serlapo was the first one, was ambassador of the Republic of Florence, was one of the governor of the Republic of Florence, and he kept his passion with his brother on the vineyard and making wine. And there is some very nice letters written between 1380 something and 1410 about story about wines, about how we need to make fermentation, how to blend, how
the wine trade.
Huh.
He's saying that he's talking about how the wine trade and what to buy and what's best and what regions, what appellations, and in fact it is kind of considered the one who named Chianti the wine of the region. Because for the first time we've seen one of his documents, as official document written down, which is penned by Serlapo Mazzei, where he's selling some barrels of Chianti wine. And actually the letter says, on December 16, 1398, 3 florins, 26 soldi, and 8 denari, which is the currency of the day,
right,
shall be given to Piero di Riccio for 6 barrels of Chianti wine.
Wow.
And we pay a written letter of Serlapo Mazzei.
So down to the very, very beginning of the whole appellation, the whole,
But nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
Yeah, we're still trading the same way. I mean, we're not selling barrels, we're selling bottles. I mean, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing, right? That's incredible. I didn't realize that the family was involved that specifically with wine from the very, very beginning. That's actually incredible.
And actually, Serlapo was let's say, more of a sales guy. It was like more in the city, trading, talking, and that he was doing as a side job. But anyway, that was mainly passion. But then his brother was the one, the grower. He would keep growing vineyards. He was growing vineyards at Carmignano. Wow.
So you've seen, obviously, I mean, the evolution of the appellation in recent years has been quite dynamic, and Chianti Classico is one of the regions that most impresses today, just for the kind of unity of the producers and the forward-looking vision of how the wines are placed, and there's been a lot of changes. And I know that, I mean, your dad Filippo has been involved in that, and your uncle Francesco as well. There's been so basically in the Chianti Classico region, there was Chianti Classico, and then on top of that, Riserva. And as of the last, let's say, 6 or 7 years, there is a Gran Selezione, which is the top of the quality pyramid. And you guys have made really good use of that. So how over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, you've just kind of had to change the way you look at your vineyards, I see, or change the way that you look at your entire production? Because I've noticed that a lot of your wines have gone up to Gran Selezione status.
Yeah, I think that more than a change was an evolution. That started when we launched on 1998 the first vintage of Castello di Fonterutoli. Well, at that time was, an heritage,
Right.
coming from,
This is
yeah, that's right, perfect. At the beginning was Sangiovese with some Cabernet Sauvignon. And step by step, due to the research, to the big work that we did in a vineyard, we are right to get better and better Sangiovese, better and better sites, and so slowly we move on 100% Sangiovese. And this is, I think, it's a normal story. Well, I mean, that's my personal point of view. I think it's so important to not working with recipe, but to improve what really you are doing. And of course, Sangiovese, I mean, is the variety we have here, and we are very happy to arrive to this achievement that was not easy, because 20 years ago was totally considered impossible, and I think it was really impossible to make 100% Sangiovese, because the reason why of the clonal selection was so important. What the tremendous work was done in this. The reason why I think the Chianti Classico right now is so interesting, because most of the winery invested so much in the vineyard, on research, on Sangiovese, and now we have results, and it's not finished, we hope.
The project started with the Chianti Classico 2000, which was led by Carlo and the consortium and everything. It started way before than 20 years ago, actually.
Yeah.
When was it?
Started on the 90s.
Yeah. So anyway, it took a bit of time, and one wine that you just listed recently, Vicoreggio, is the result of all our research that we did in years. Which is, we got 4, it's beautiful locations in Castelnuovo and Ardenga. We got situations where we planted all the 36 different types of Sangiovese that we own, 18 Amasa selections exclusive to my family, from selection started from the early 1900s, and then we introduced, after the Chianti Classico 2000, 18 clones of Sangiovese. It's a nursery project, they're all together for a statistic purpose, to really understand what are the differences that are kind of the same situation, the same environment. And we make a wine after 36 vinifications, where all the types of Sangiovese are vinified separate. So it's a hell of a job for one wine, which is a delicious wine that I like a lot.
So I've always been
very charming wine.
Yeah, so now it's now labeled as a Chianti Classico Gran Selezione, but in the past it was an IGT Toscana.
The past was an IGT, exactly.
Yeah, and I've always been fascinated by this wine because, as you say, obviously the changes in the appellation have all to do with our understanding of Sangiovese and the potential of Sangiovese, and you can actually chart the wine style so clearly in Chianti Classico, going from a more kind of opulent and darker colored wines that maybe had small percentages of other grapes. And now you get to this very kind of streamlined and elegant style. So it's been really, the evolution has been quite remarkable. And you're this mix of 36 different biotypes of Sangiovese kind of gives a blueprint, in a sense of what potential we have for the future, not just for today, but what will come out, with our further understanding of Sangiovese, putting that grape specifically in the territory that it likes best, and changing, the single vineyards and whatnot. So it's been, it's always been really fascinating to watch your approach as well to, this kind of greater understanding of Sangiovese.
I call it the heart beating of Fonterutoli.
The heart beating of Fonterutoli, yeah. So, but in these, because if you farm in 3 different townships or comuni of Chianti Classico, can you tell us a little bit of the differences? I mean, for example, Rada is known for maybe some higher altitude vineyards, so a little bit cooler, as opposed to Castelnuovo Berardenga, which is always a little bit warmer and the soils are a little bit thicker, so it makes a more structured wine. And then, of course, where you are in Castellina is kind of a beautiful mix. Can you tell us a little bit about your soils and about the different farming sites?
I try to do it in a very, very simple way, but it's not difficult because we have 2 or 3 different important differences. First of all, we work on the altitude, where Castelnuovo Berardenga is the lowest, and then is Fonterutoli. Castelnuovo Berardenga is around 260 meters, something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to Fonterutoli, so Castellina, it's around 450 meters. And then you go to Badiola, Radda, where it's 570 meters.
Right.
So all the 3 soil have it right.
This is the Badiola, yeah.
This is the highest place right now of production. And what the link of all these 3 different soils is the percentage of calcar. All the Chianti Classico area, you have a high percentage of calcar, what makes, I think, this country, one of the things that makes this place so interesting. The third point is the structure of the soil. In Castelnuovo Berardenga, we have limestone with a very high percentage of clay. In Fonterutoli, we have the typical Alberese, so the limestone with a big percentage of rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And soil that are not really deep. And above in Badiola, there is sandstone.
Yeah.
That fight against me. And in Badiola, we have the typical sandstone, so Alberese, Galestro and Arenaria. So this is the thing that makes difference. So it's soil and altitude, mainly.
Right. So that gives you, so basically over the course of time, because I know that you've always believed very strongly in micro-vinifications. So over the course of time, this has led to this further identification of each vineyard site for each wine then.
Right.
That's the classic evolution.
So this is something that we are very proud, because we have a knowledge of this single parcel and a single area of production that we can go back to 2005, and for each single parcel, and this made us, help us to have a better knowledge of the differences and how consistent are these differences during different vintage and different situation of climate or different quality of harvest, and this made us let's say kind of information that when we realized that we are going on a subzone, a different commune in the next in the next future, we say why we are not present the markets. There's 3 different places. And was quite easy, to do it. Mm-hmm.
Well, with this set of new releases, you've come through with a whole bunch of different changes. As I said, moving a lot of the wines up in category to Gran Selezione, doing more work on the single vineyards. So this has been kind of with this set of new releases, I would say it's been kind of a watershed year for you at Consoli Fonterutoli. There's a lot of there's been like a maturity of your philosophy, I suppose.
I think it kind of started with Siepi, Siepi is our single vineyard. It's always been with this fantastic blending, Sangiovese and Merlot 50-50. This unique place, which is a few kilometers from the actual town of Fonterutoli, and it's a place that belonged to my family since the 1435, and been a vineyard since the 1461. But anyway, that's what I think. That's one of the crew, and then we realized Fonterutoli, and then we have 8. Actually, it's not just the 3 districts. We classified 8 different locations. So we go from in Castelnuovo Berardenga, we have 2 locations, which is one at Belvedere and Vicoreggio. In Radda, we have 2 locations, which is Badiola and Leripe, already 2 quite different in the same district. And then we have Fonteruto, which is Castellino and Chianti, but more higher. And then we have Caggio, where we a wine we make from there called Hitsus. It's a little bit lower, a lot of very electrifying type of wine, where instead Fonteruto is all about spices and aromatics. So there's a really, I find that what we're trying to aim with this is to be very entertaining as much as possible with all the differences in the estate.
But have you taken out some wines from your portfolio as well? Am I wrong? Have there been some, have you discontinued some, or like the Filippo? I didn't see that this year.
Well, no, Philip, we have not been discontinued. We're still doing Philip, absolutely. Philip, actually, one thing we haven't said is about Philip, which is Filippo Mazzei is wine dedicated to our ancestor Filippo, who was considered as an American patriot.
No, was American citizen.
True. And it's a great character. In fact, that's why you named him actually, Filippo.
Yes, I'm the first of the family, because after when he died, I mean, at that time was considered a little bit a black sheep of the family. It was revolutionary, and I am the first. So after 200 over 20 years, I'm the first whose name Filippo is.
Because how does the name works? It goes from grandfather to first son. How does the...
No. It kind of does, but not really in our family. It depends on some generation have done that, and some others that haven't.
That
it's
have
not really a rule in our family. Luckily, because I find it too
boring.
Well, I mean, at least it's consistent, right?
Yeah.
Listen, if anybody has any questions at all, please shoot. Go ahead, and I will try to answer. Try to put them to our guest. But listen, before I wanted to move on, just for a brief interlude as well, because not only do you farm in the Chianti Classico appellation, but you also have property on coastal Tuscany and in Sicily as well. So I wanted to ask you a little bit, how did that come about? What was the reason for this expansion? And maybe we can talk a little bit about the differences in your farming approach between Tuscany and Sicily, two very different regions.
Well, I think my uncle and my father have been so many years in Tuscany, in Chianti, and working with the sort of pyramid concept, which is such a strict rule. They decided to go for a bit of more freedom, and they found this lovely place in the Maremma in the southwest of Tuscany, and a beautiful location just south of Grosseto. Just under the Montagnata in front of the Alberese and the Argentario. Such a lovely locations, and they fell in love and they bought this place called Belguardo. That was 1997.
1997, yeah. So.
We started a project based on Bordeaux blends and Vermentino, which is, for me, is the Mediterranean variety for antonomasia. So the real Mediterranean, with the one you can really feel the Mediterranean.
It's true. You can the salt and the kind of the macchia mediterranea, the kind of wild brush and bramble. I mean, it's really, Vermentino is terrific, especially in that area of Tuscany.
And I think exactly the Maremma expression, I think is really unique because it kind of it's able to combine when it's actually a pure Vermentino. Because sometimes it's too aromatics. Instead, I think the Vermentino has this nice character, it's semi-aromatic, but a lot of sapidity, freshness, salty, exactly.
Yeah, it's salty, yeah. It's like the sea.
And I think it's a great expression. It really combines what happens in Sardinia and Corsica, and as well a bit of with the likeness of the Liguria. I think it's a good combination of everything. What we did, we imported some clones from the northern Corsica, from Capocorso, which is a great location for Vermentino. And then we have a Bordeaux blend, which is Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon, which is, I think, is the the Bordeaux varieties. I think are growing incredibly well for the whole coast of Tuscany.
But in those years, at the end of the 90s, I know that a lot of people were looking at buying land there in the Maremma, in Grosseto. So that was kind of at the beginning of what would then later become, a more popular choice, right? Is to have a appellation-driven wines in Chianti Classico, very, you know, rigidly following appellation guidelines, and then having this creative freedom from,
Exactly.
you know, it was afforded on the coast of Tuscany, where you could kind of do what you want. You could grow the grapes you want and blend them, you know, and kind of put your hands in a more, you know,
Also,
creative
it
process.
was still new, so everybody were kind of experimenting a bit what could grow better in Maremma, more than obviously Bolgheri was established. But
Right.
It was a kind of laboratory where you can, you know, work with fantasy, experiment, less rules if you want. No?
Do you
And
see
make it
any
important
other
for us
regions?
sometimes.
Do you see any other regions of Italy that have that kind of that pioneering spirit, like we saw, you know, in the Maremma of the last, you know, 15 years, 20 years?
I see something in Lazio a little bit, you know, and like between border between Lazio and Tuscany. I think also what's happening underneath the lake in Bolsena, or the small tiny places we're actually discovering.
Right.
That's something very creative where you go like young kids like doing garage wines and doing something very interesting. But then in a bigger scale, well, I don't know. Actually, I find
Yeah, because I mean, you know, the pairing of the traditional Chianti Classico and then Maremma wines is really fantastic when you have that portfolio that has those two sides. And then you went, so then of course you made an even more, I guess, courageous choice, or more off, you know, for the time, by going to Sicily as well, right? Which is,
but that's that story.
yes, yeah, that's that story.
Story.
Well, I actually see your father in Sicily more than I
He
do
was
in
actually falling a
Tuscany.
goal.
He's always there.
It was nothing to do with wine. It was falling a goal.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It's true, huh?
I had at the time a very nice flirt with a beautiful woman that introduced me on. It was in Palermo, it was on the occidental part of Sicily. They introduced me to the new producer, because I knew the Tuscan family, I knew most of the people, but at that time there was this upcoming family, was the Planeta family, that started with, I was there tasting the first Chardonnay, and this was the Chardonnay in 93. That was the first vintage. It was in March, no, sorry, in 95.
In 95.
So it was the 94. And I was, I think, one of the first that tasted this wine. And so we had there was all young, and there was a very good relationship. And so they decided that I have to buy in Sicily. So they organized, we left they picked us up in Catania airport, and we 700 kilometers all around Sicily. And it was me and Carlo Ferrini, together with Diego Planeta, Alessio, and Ticca.
Oh my God, that must have been quite a car. That must have been quite a ride.
And then we went all around Sicily, and you know, coming from Tuscany, of course, I haven't anything against the western part, because it's so beautiful. But I mean, think about where we are in Noto. Noto is southeastern part of Sicily, where there is all the Baroque town. And so you have the story, this heart, and let's say, and it's more in a way human, more cultivated. You have olive trees, you have oranges. I found, you know, I had a better feeling, so no question to, and then I decided to buy. And the problem is how to buy, because it took 5 years to find the right place, you know. Because they were at that time not so professional to, you know, I want this and this and that, and they proposed completely different things. So I mean, it was very difficult. But at the end, we found this place. We found a place that's beautiful. Well, you have been there.
Yeah. But did the Planeta family help you find the actual property, or it was just kind of through? No.
They introduced you.
They introduced you to the
They
person.
want to be sure that we were buying something, you know. I updated every months, but it was very difficult to find the right place. And I'm very happy, because the place we have, I think, first of all, there is another important point. As in Tuscany, Sangiovese, or at least the Chianti Classico, the central part of Tuscany, Sangiovese, there is where Nero d'Avola is born. So that's another reason why it's a hard story, or difficult, or biodiversity and local important indigenous important variety.
Right. And I remember, you know, the bottle of the wine has a fingerprint, you know, on the front of the label, the kind of giving that idea of this, you know, the special identity. Right.
That was
Well,
Francesco's.
Filippo, I can't imagine that it's easy for someone like you to go to Sicily and say, "Hey, I'm here to buy land." I mean, you have to have
I had a
people
wonderful reception. I had
everything is
people
a
are so
negotiation.
kind, and they were so happy. There is, you know, I think Sicily is very nice, not only for the island, the landscape, the place, but especially for the quality of people, the good one.
No, it's an incredible place, and you know, it's very deep in my heart as well, as is Tuscany. But Sicily is really a special place.
That's so charming.
So listen, I know that this is a question that I often get asked when we do these Instagram lives, but I'll just ask it. So how are you seeing any differences, especially since you have the property in Sicily, farming and climate change? What are you seeing in the vineyards? Any impact?
Maybe I didn't listen very well. Impact of
for climate change.
And climate change.
For climate change.
The traditional state in Sicily and here. Okay. Listen, this is as all we know, it's a very, very difficult question, because for sure things have changed. Think about how rain is concentrated, and this is in a short period, and this is the same in Tuscany, the same on the coast, and the same in Sicily. So for sure we have to face a different situation. But in terms of viticulture, I don't know if really this is enormous change. Because think about that, for example, talking about Caggio. Of course, we went up, talking about Fonterupoli, first of all, in Caggio. We went up in planting Sangiovese with a better clones, with more knowledge, and to find places where you can have character, but especially elegance. But on the other hand, when you see where is Caggio, Caggio is 350 meters, so it's the classic altitude for Sangiovese, and it's still perfect. So I see that we have to do a lot to face, let's say, climate change, but I think still the good places are more or less the same. For sure that maybe at La Bagnola was impossible 20 years ago to do something as we are doing now, but at that time we had clones that we can't even compare to what you have to do today. So
I think the major issue that we all seen, it's a water issue. I mean, what we've seen at the moment is the way it rains, and the way the rains comes is more like bombs of water, where sometimes the soil is not prepared to absorb the water. So I think we need to understand better how to farm and make sure that we gain that water without losing it. And that's an issue that was really actually interesting report the other day about how much the desertifications can be considered because of that. Because as much in Sicily, the rain is actually probably even being higher than Maremma, if I remember.
Yeah,
really,
If I remember right.
Really.
But the way the rain gets there, it's different than how it happens in Maremma. So it becomes much more drier, even if it rains more. So that's one thing that we will probably need to understand better for the next year and for the next generation.
we have some very good experience from Maremma and Sicily, where we tried that. Normally, what we have is our technical department manage all the different varieties. Where they have in the same year, they have 3 different harvests, different situations. And
right.
we had very good experience, and we profit on this to let's say, for example, what you call it dry farming, where in Sicily they are so good. And right now we import some knowledge
From dry farming in Sicily.
Yeah. Or even Maremma, because from Maremma and Sicily, the different gardens are very, not really, it's much bigger from here to the coast. of the south coast of Tuscany. Maremma is not so different from Sicily, from that part.
It's very extreme because you get summers where it doesn't rain, it's very windy, it gets super dry. So it's kind of like an extreme location. Even if the location of Belguardo, since you got the Montamiata behind you, really gets like nice cool breeze in the night. So it's very interesting for the photosynthesis and all of that. But definitely the situations between Fonterutoli and Belguardo from Maremma and Chianti, even if it's an hour and a half drive, it's so completely different.
You know, we are having wildfires here in California, and I woke up this morning, to help my brother harvest, and we started, you know, when it was dark, and then the sun started coming up, and it was red. It was incredible to see. And there's this weird quality of air, and everything is orange. The light is orange. You know, it's another strange thing to put on the beginning of harvest when you have this terrible air. So you both, Giovanni, you and your dad are mentioning Caggio, which we really haven't covered, but that's kind of one of the most important things that I wanted to talk to you about, because starting with this year, you have a new release of a property that you've actually been farming for many years, and now it has become not only its own new wine, but kind of its own new brand, or new site. And the wine is called Ipsus, and it's made by you, of course, but under the name Caggio, which is where the vineyard is located. And this is a very special wine with limited production, a pretty high price tag, sold on allotment, pre-sold and sold directly to the consumer. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about this project and how it was born. And so this is, in a sense, it's not even part of your regular, Fonterutoli portfolio. It's kind of its own project. But I find it fascinating because it's really one of the first wines that, in my opinion, really grabs the idea of the Gran Selezione and pushes it to an extreme. In terms of the purity of the winemaking, the high price tag, the strong link to a specific vineyard. So could you give us a little bit more information on this wine?
Well, it's been a very a lucky situation, because we had our neighbor, Caggio, is basically attached to Fonterutoli. It's a few kilometers down from the actual village, and luckily the owner of Caggio in 2006 wanted to sell it, and he specifically wanted to sell it to us. So he came to my father and my uncle, knocked the door, and says, "You guys, I like what you do. You gotta get it." And my father and my uncle bravely, after all the bad investment they'd done, they said, "Okay, well, we can't miss this opportunity." And immediately, after a few understanding of the vineyards, and we gained 40 hectares of vineyard with that, 44 on our own, 45. And but there were 6.5 hectares, which we knew were quite special, tasting already the wines made by the previous owner. But then the ones we did with our own hands, the first vinification, which is 2006, we were blown away. We were immediately, literally blown away. But as you said, by the purity, by the balance, by the equilibrium this place by nature has already. Because we actually inherited, I would say, a more classic, more old school viticulture than what we are now actually at Fonterutoli. And even if the viticulture wasn't actually showing who we are, the terroir was predominant. The actual Caggio was screaming without. Doesn't matter what by Caggio is actually planted. It was mainly very driven by the locations where you got this particular finesse in tannins and this very electrifying type of Sangiovese, which is classic things from Castellino and Chianti, but very special from that particular area. And so anyway, after 10 years of vinifications, we said, well, 15th vintage probably should be the vintage to release the first bottles or the first.
So the inaugural vintage is 2015. This is the first vintage we're seeing.
Exactly, which is 15 is a fantastic vintage. It's a bit of warmer vintage, but very charming.
It's very sunny, very solare, very sunny.
Great acidity in the way, even if it was a warmer vintage, and you got this classic tannins of that type of classic vintage. You know, it's really soft, silky, and it's a wine. I think it's very enjoyable now. What I like is this minerality as well, compared with the level of red fruit you get, and then blended with violet and lavender. But it's the magical of the soil, because it's basically a plateau. We are, as my father just said, it's 350 meters from the sea level to 320, 315. So it's basically a plateau that just flatly goes down, facing southwest. And you immediately, in 6 hectares and a half, which is basically a close, it's all a closed property, you have at the northern part at the top, you got a belt of clay, which is a very intense sort of blue clay, and then the soil breaks and start getting more rocky and rocky and rocky. So then when we were understanding better the plots, which is our 7 plots, we understood this probably is not enough to verify just 7 plots, so we actually doing over 18 verifications, sorry,
18,
to just make the Ipsos, which is 2,400 bottles. So it's a peculiar selections in a very small environment. And
so you said that.
Yeah.
No, of the 6.5 hectares of vines, some of them are the old vines that were left there from the previous owner, as you said, and then a smaller part is
well, we planted
Nassau
over that
selection.
hectare with our agriculture, with our own biotypes after the experience here with Mazzei Caggio. And then the rest is still what we inherited. We changed the way of farming, where we treated vineyards. It's completely. We actually drawn our own protocol with a specific protocol with the Florence of University of Florence, University of Pisa, an organic protocol which is based on the immune system, and we all with nature inducer we increase the immune system, and we've been very front thinking in farming in that way, because we have reduced a lot of the manipulations that you actually allow you to do as an organic winery. So we actually went further with knowledge and how to reduce all the impact. And it's very interesting as well. My father built this beautiful cellar, which was basically the first one gravity-fed cellar.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah, I remember I went to the inauguration of the new cellar.
Yeah.
I remember I was, my God, this is, because it was, really state of the art. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago, but still, in Chianti Classico, this amazing cellar that, all gravity.
And now with Ipsos, we realized that we actually, obviously the gravity is a game changer, but then we avoid all the type of pumping over. But now, and we're using only the pinching down, but now only with the Ipsos, basically we just do nothing, not even the pinching down. We just adding with a little jar, just a bit of wine on top of it. And really, we discovered the purity of the Sangiovese, just really with less manipulations as possible by ours.
To make a long story short, I think that the terroir was so dominant on this project. It took for us 10 years to understand that maybe you have to do a new wine.
So it was a long evolution in thought.
Yeah, to accept, to understand, to accept. That's the reason why we want to, it's linked to, for Turduba, it's separate in a way, because we want to keep it separate.
But that's the label actually, because on top you can see the bell tower of Fulterupoli.
Oh, yes.
And that's the road that goes down to Caggio.
Right, you can kind of see there's the, the road that, that goes, oh, I see. So that's the connection. That's the connection between, that's the thread that connects the two properties.
And the idea was to create something that's on its own, separate. There's a lovely little hamlet in a way, not similar to Fulterupoli, much more smaller version. And from this year, the wine will start aging at Caggio, so we'll go back to its home. And
right.
Then from 2021, we will do the first vinification. So
in 2021.
Yeah.
So you'll do fermentations directly in Caggio and also
yes. So at the moment we'll just age, and then from 2021 we will start being ready for the first harvest.
So tell me, I mean, the wine is a little bit of a provocation too. Am I wrong? I mean, it's a little bit, it's pushing, no?
I think it's a new chapter. So we wanted to really I think we talk a lot about research. We talk a lot about the effort that we've done. I think, and that's the generations of my grandfather, my father, my uncle. And I think now my generation and it's between and everybody. And now we're really sitting on what's been the revolution. So we really have now, we are really put in a position to get it out there and scream it to the world. Mm-hmm. We have the best wines in the world with when don't need to hide. And I think the Sangiovese here is phenomenal, not just in Caggio, but I mean all around the Chianti. And I see more people encouraged, thanks for the Gran Selezione, and I hope, thanks what we're doing with Ipsus, to do something that's more fitting for the viticulture, and really can really scream what's the work here and what's the viticulture, what's the working man behind the vineyards.
And I know that a big part of the wine is also trying to invite people who buy the wine to come to Caggio, to see where it's born. And I know that you've worked to create a little bit of a hospitality area, or
yeah, exactly. So we wanted to create something that's around Ipsus in a way that the buyer who loves Ipsus, it's very limited. It's a rarity. It's just a few bottles. So we want to really know. We want to be friends, and we want to know the people who are going to buy Ipsus. I think we want to create a sense of belonging. I don't think it's just like drinking a wine in this case. It's really like feeling part of it and be together with us and spending time with us at Caggio. So who buys Ipsus, who come across with Ipsus, will be able to spend time with me, with Jonathan, with my father, tasting from the barrels, spending time with us, staying at Caggio. We've got a good hospitality all around that, and have a luxury that you can buy. I mean, living a life in the vineyards.
We want to do it in a very simple way, as the barrel room this year and the fermentation room next year are going on a very natural, keeping what it was before. And same for the room. We're gonna have few rooms, but I mean without doing any very special things. So nice and that's we can have people that can share the experience of this place.
So as you experience the Caggio experience, right?
The Caggio experience,
right.
Yeah. So I know that you're working. So the project manager, Jonathan, as you pronounce his name, Jonathan Polignani, but he's kind of overseeing the whole project, or is he involved in the winemaking specifically, or are you also working with Carlo Ferrini on this? No.
Well, this is Carlo Ferrini. Of course, we work with Castelli Fonterugoli.
Right. Oh, I see. So they're separate from the winemaking.
Yeah, and Carlo's been behind obviously all the old as well. Since 2006. When we bought it, Caggio was part and blended with Castelli Fonterugoli. But Ipsus is definitely a creation coming from the ends of Jonathan and all together. But I think this is really the result of many years of work with Jonathan. And Jonathan's been behind the viticulture, but as well now the winemaking as well.
Winemaking.
Yeah. And I think this is
the 20th year he's working for us.
For 20th year, yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite. We are very happy. It's a very knowledge and very passion and very let's say demanding person on his group and on. So we have very very good relationship with him. Without him, let's say, was more difficult to achieve this. It's important to have, this is you can't do it on your own. I mean, people that tell that they can manage everything, I think they are lying. You need to have a group that have the same feeling, and sometimes you even have let's say, a different opinion, but on a purpose to get, the best of the best. I think it's important. I trust him.
And he really gets the place. He really gets the surrounding. It's like very balanced, and I think that's really is the summarize of that.
Right. So, so his personality is kind of tied to the identity of the wine in a greater way. I mean, when I had a chance to interview the three of you, you know, you both with Jonathan when we did our Zoom call, I guess a month and a half ago, and it's true that he really, you know, in terms of the taking charge of describing the vineyards and the territory, obviously a lot of passion. So listen, I wanted to ask you both. So what are some of the influences, the wine influences that you both count on in your drinking experience, or regions that you have enjoyed drinking, or wines that that are very close to your heart, either Italian or other wines? Some of your icons. Yeah, some of the wines that you enjoy, you know, when you're not drinking, when you at home or with your family.
Well, I like to drink Barolos. If we're talking about Italy, I like to drink Barolo and Barbaresco. And there's so many producers that I actually like. I mean, I think if one wine that I love a lot lately is the Barbera Colombo from Marchese di Grisi.
Mm-hmm.
One I enjoy a lot. I think Barbera also is a great variety, but definitely I find myself a lot in Piedmont.
A lot of Piedmont. More so than Tuscany, you know, when you drink outside.
Well, maybe because I'm so surrounded by Tuscany, so I like.
Of course, yeah.
And then I drink as well a lot of Pinot Noir across the different regions. I think one Pinot Noir that I love a lot is the Chacra, Bottega Chacra Pinot Noir. I think is delicious from Argentina. I don't know. I drink everything, to be honest. I really love when I travel, especially my travels when I travel to some wines. I always try to drink whatever wine is made in the place or whatever comes across to me. I think it's always like you get enriched with this massive library of different appellations.
As I am a little bit older than Giovanni, of course my history is a little bit different. Anyway, generally speaking, we love all the good wines. Well, when I started there was comparing just to Bordeaux was the where the innovation, where the wine getting more expensive. So a lot of experience. We visited so many times Bordeaux. We have very good friends there. And then getting older, you change, you enlarge your experience. No, of course, there was Burgundy and there was Piedmont. There was, I have to say, some German wine in terms of white wine. You have also still the dream to do a very, very important white wines in the future. I don't know when, because for the moment we are not enough money to do other projects, and it's important not only for we have the COVID, we have to work on the payback, and I think also the South America, and I agree with Giovanni. My daughter lives in Buenos Aires, so I went there for more once or another time, and the experience to have, even in traditional places as Mendoza, for example, or now the new upcoming places Salta or Patagonia. I think there is very nice, interesting thing. But nevertheless, I have to say that even in California, I generally speaking, there is a big evolution, and I find very, very interesting wine. I think that there is no, as it was years ago, this is my preferred country. I think there is many different places, some different places where I have producers that are really connected to much more than was in the past with the terroir. We need to find the character, the personality, and really the wine that is your wine, different from the other. And I think this is a big challenge for the future.
Giovanni, we have a couple of people asking you to repeat the name of the Argentinian
Bottega Chacra.
Chacra with a C.
C is Chacra. Chacra.
Exactly. Okay.
Wonderful Pinot Noir.
With your discussion of Argentina, would there be any idea of any expansion or any other plans? Where would you, if you could make wine somewhere else, where would you make it? Nowhere else.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm also fascinated by this. You know, there's a wine that I came across lately, which is pretty famous now. It's on the Tibet part of China, and I think not that I think that extreme location of Asia, not necessarily in China, but to find an extreme location in Asia, I'm quite attracted by that.
Right, the discovery terroir, right?
Discovery terroir, exactly. But otherwise, I think, yeah, South America, maybe also Chile. I mean, it's such a great, nation, which is so with such a diversity, similar to Italy in a way. It's such a long and with a lot of differences, a lot of mountains. So, but not really. We have nothing in mind. But definitely, what my father said, I think a project on white wine, it would be something that should be in on the next
a white wine
from our family. I think this white wine nowadays has changed a lot, probably in the last 10 years. And I think we all seen white wine differently than what we were seeing before, especially here in Italy, you know. So,
but in terms of what varietals besides Vermentino would you be looking at?
Well, it says here in Tuscany, definitely Trebbiano. I'm a big fan of the Trebbiano from Tuscany. The one is the one of our friends and Jews from Petrolo, which is he makes a great Trebbiano.
He makes an amphora aged,
Exactly.
Trebbiano.
Otherwise, Valentini from Abruzzo, I think is a mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing, exactly, yeah.
We are
so
We are doing some little experiment in Trebbiano. We don't know.
You're doing some experiment. But so are you looking at alternative aging vessels as well, or what are you thinking in terms of the winemaking for the Trebbiano?
Well, I think, mainly is we're not sure about really how will be the vinifications and all the process, but I think it's mainly now to understand where our Trebbiano will grow the best and what will be the best location for it. We kind of have an idea. I'm not sure if it really matters at that stage what will be, if it's amphora or not amphora, how vinified or not. And what will be, I think it's mainly to find a combination that can really deliver the terroir, as we've been saying, or something that can really scream this is something very special from this location.
Right, because Rada in Chianti has some pretty good...
Monteraponi makes one, which I think is very good.
Exactly, a good Trebbiano.
And as well, Castello di Rampolla makes one crazy without sulfides that I actually tried the other day. It was delicious.
Yeah. So I guess we can see a little bit more a little bit more work with Trebbiano. It's interesting in the future. All right, so
maybe other regions of Italy. I mean, the Alps are always very attractive.
Yeah, I think the Alps are really, for me, in terms of white wine, really the most attractive place because of.
I just finished tasting the Alto Adige. Oh my God, so good.
It's funny how now. It's not funny, but I think we all talk now more about Alto Adige, but I think also the part of Friuli, which is, I think, one of the most located regions for white wines.
Right, the Casso.
Very attractive to me,
Yeah, it's kind of wild and crazy, some of the wines there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, guys, this has been terrific. And I thank you so much also for choosing your location with your family tree. It's just so spectacular. No, it really is. It's, it's moving. And I always remember when I think of you, I always think of that image of the family tree because it's such a symbol, of the longevity of your family. And now to know that the very roots of that tree are in wine, right? Down to the very bottom, right?
It is.
Listen, it has been great speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Nice talking to you too.
Nice talking to you, and I hope to see you soon in Chianti.
So when do you think you can be able to come back to Italy?
That is the big question. I'm hoping to come back in September.
I know where. You can come from Malta.
I can go from Malta. Yeah, I can go from Malta.
My American friend who was meant to come, and he said that he couldn't make it because the Americans are not allowed, etc. He found a way. He landed to London, then from London flew to Malta, and then from Malta got into Italy.
I guess I have to look into that. I mean, my apartment is empty, and you know, the only problem now is that I have, in fact, actually, I will even stand up to show you. I have received so many wines here in California. Let me show you. These are all my boxes here. Look at this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I've received so many wines here now that I'm going to be here for a long time before I can finish tasting all this. So
That's unbelievable.
it's incredible. A lot of work, yeah. But I'm set up well here, so I have a lot of space, and you know, this is all the stuff that just arrived. I had a huge shipment come. So, bene. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
your
much.
time.
Grazie a voi. Grazie a voi.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.